I didn't recognize my own children the first time I saw them. I just saw three small bodies huddled under a thin blanket on a freezing Atlanta sidewalk, wrapped around a woman I once promised to love until I died, then left behind when the money got louder than my heart. Tell me something. If you walked past that in the snow and those kids had your eyes, would you stop? Or would you keep going? My name is Malik Johnson, and this is the part of my life I never meant to tell on camera, the part that rips the suit off the billionaire headline and shows you the man I really was, selfish, scared, proud, and one step away from losing the only thing that ever mattered. I'm not here to give you a motivational speech. I'm here to tell you exactly how I ended up on my knees in the snow in front of my ex-wife and the three children I didn't know were mine. That night started like every other successful night, black tie gala at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Charity banners everywhere, people in gowns saying all the right words about hope and community, while their eyes stayed locked on the open bar and the camera flashes. They loved me there. The story of the kid from nothing who built a tech empire called Johnson Dynamics, made his first million at 28, hit billionaire before 40 shook hands. Like a politician wrote checks big enough to get my name on walls on days like that, I could pretend that was enough. Inside the ballroom, my fiancée Vanessa had her hand looped through my arm like it belonged there. She was stunning, sharp, connected to every board and brand you can think of. The kind of woman people expected to see next to a man like me. She leaned in and whispered, "Smile, baby, the cameras are on." So I did. I smiled. I laughed. I said all the usual lines. We're honored to support. It's about giving back, all of it smooth, all of it hollow. Underneath the music and the speeches, there was this weird silence in my chest, like all the noise in the room couldn't reach the part of me that still remembered my mom counting tips at the kitchen table. Remembered eviction notices taped to thin apartment doors. Remembered telling myself, when I make it, we will never be cold again. Be careful with the vows you make. When you're angry, they don't forget you. I stepped outside for air. That was my excuse, really. I was just tired of lying with a straight face the second those glass doors closed behind me. The sound dropped, and I heard it for the first time that night. The kind of quiet only money and snow can buy. Atlanta almost never gets snow, but that night, soft white flakes came down slow through the streetlights on Peachtree like God had hit pause on the city. My driver pulled up with the Maybach. I waved him off. "Take the long way home, I'm walking up a bit." He blinked. "It's snowing, Mr. Johnson." "Yeah, I noticed," I said and started walking. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe I just wanted to feel something real. My phone buzzed with messages from Vanessa, from my assistant, from investors in different time zones. I ignored all of it, my shoes crunching on thin snow, my breath fogging in front of me. Then I saw them. At first it was just a shape pressed into the doorway of a closed shop, a pile of dull colors under a cheap blanket. I've seen homelessness before. I grew up one paycheck away from it. I donate. I fund programs. I tell myself I care, but I'd gotten really good at not really looking this time. I looked. The blanket shifted, and I saw a small brown hand, cracked knuckles. No gloves, shaking. Then a face tipped up toward the streetlight. Big wide eyes, curls, lips trembling. Then another and another. 3 kids tucked against a woman's body as she tried to block the wind with her own shoulders. Their breath came out in sharp clouds, shoes soaked through cheeks raw. One of the boys turned his head just right, and I froze, same dimple at the corner of his mouth as mine, same stubborn jaw, same "I'm not gonna cry" look, my brain said. Coincidence, my chest whispered, "Look again." Then the woman lifted her head. Malik. I hadn't heard my name sound like that in years, soft and cracked and full of history. It was Tiana, my ex-wife, the girl who used to share one plate of fries with me in college, who held my hand when my first startup crashed, who prayed with me in a one-bedroom apartment when we didn't know how rent would get paid. The woman I divorced when success started calling me sir, and I decided she didn't fit the brand anymore. Yeah, that happened. Tiana, I said, and it came out like all the air left my lungs. At once I stepped closer, hands up like I was approaching a wounded animal. She straightened, pulling those kids tighter, putting herself between me and them, those tired eyes turned sharp. Don't come near us. That cut deeper than any headline ever could. What happened? What are you doing out here? I asked, snow collecting on her lashes. We're fine, she said, voice shaking. Please just go. One of the kids started coughing. Not a cute little cough, but that deep chest cold, in your bones dangerous kind of cough. The little girl squeezed her hands over her ears against the wind, my stomach twisted. I shrugged out of my coat, stepped forward. She tried to block me, but her hands were trembling so bad she could barely hold the blanket. I laid the coat over. All of them felt how cold their shoulders were. Get in the car, I said quietly. No, she snapped, pride flaring. We don't need you. The youngest whimpered. Another gust of wind knifed through, and I watched Tiana's resolve crack right there on the concrete. If it were you, I'm asking you watching this right now, if those were your kids and your pride was the only thing standing between them and warmth, what would you do? She swallowed hard, nodded once. Kids, grab your stuff. Stuff was one torn backpack and a plastic bag. I waved my driver over. He pulled up slow, probably wondering why his boss was standing in the snow with a homeless family. The triplets climbed in first, their eyes going huge at the leather seats. The soft lights, the sudden blast of heat like they'd been dropped into another planet. Tiana slid in at the edge as far from me as she could get, neck tense, jaw locked. The doors shut, the city noise dulled, the only sound was the heater, and 3 kids trying to breathe quietly. How long? I asked. A few months, she said. You had nobody to call. She stared out the window, snow streaking past the glass. Nobody who'd answer. That one landed like a punch I had thrown at myself years ago without realizing it. We drove to my penthouse in a silence that wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, my mind racing through numbers. Dates, the timeline, from our divorce to now counting backward, from their faces, from their height, from that dimple. My building's elevator opened straight into my unit. So when those doors slid back and Tiana stepped onto the white marble with 3 kids in threadbare clothes, it felt like the penthouse itself was staring, judging both of us. You can stay here tonight, I said. We'll figure the rest out tomorrow. I'm not letting you go back out there. She shook her head. We'll find a shelter, Malik. Not tonight, I said, a little more steel in my voice. Kids' shoes off, bathrooms down the hall will get you warm. They obeyed her eyes, not my words, but they moved. I called for my housekeeper, Mrs. Lang. I need blankets, towels, whatever food we've got ready. She came around the corner, did one double take, then went straight into grandma mode. No questions, just action. For a second, watching those kids sink into my couch, holding steaming bowls with both hands, like they weighed something, I felt right, and that scared me. Then the front door clicked again. Malik! Vanessa's voice, sharp heels on marble red coat, swinging full makeup, even in a snowstorm. She stopped when she saw them. What is this? It's late, Vanessa, I said, too tired for a performance. We'll talk tomorrow. Oh no, we're going to talk now. She snapped, eyes cutting to Tiana, then to the kids. You bring a woman and 3 children into our home and think I won't have questions. This is none of your business, I said. That was gasoline. None of my... Malik, I am your fiancé, she practically hissed. Are you kidding me? Some homeless ex shows up and suddenly... Do not talk about my kids like that, Tiana said, standing, voice low but burning. Your kids, Vanessa scoffed. Yeah, sure, that's all. This is story as old as time. Enough, I said, and the word came out like thunder. Everybody flinched, including me. I pointed at the door. Go home, Vanessa. We'll talk when you're calm. Her eyes filled with furious tears. You will regret this. Maybe, I said, but not more than I'd regret letting them sleep on the street. She left heels stabbing the floor, the elevator swallowed her, and I felt the night tilt on its axis. Pattern interrupt right there, the life I built and the life I ran from colliding in one living room. Later, after the kids were asleep in the guest rooms and the dishes were washed, I found Tiana standing at the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching the snow. "You didn't have to ruin your night for us," she said. "I didn't ruin anything, Vanessa ruined it herself," I muttered. She almost smiled, then didn't. "We'll be gone in the morning." "I don't want you back on that sidewalk," I said. "And I need to ask you something, and I'm not asking to insult you. I'm asking because I can't breathe without knowing." She turned, eyes wary. "What? Are they mine?" You could have heard the elevator cables hum in that silence. "After what you saw tonight, after where you found us, that's your first question," she whispered, hurting. "I should have asked 8 years ago." I said, "I know the math, Tiana, just tell me the truth." "You left before I even knew I was pregnant," she fired back. "You changed your number, your email. You let your assistant block me. You went on magazine covers talking about how you built yourself like I'd never existed. I thought you were better off without me." I lied out of habit. She shot me a look that said she heard it. "You want an answer?" she said. "We do a DNA test, not for you, for them, so you never call them a lie." By noon the next day, my lawyer and a private medical team were at the penthouse. The kids thought it was a game. Cheek swab open wide. Mia giggled. Micah said, "Are we in trouble?" I knelt and told him, "No, you're not in trouble, you're important." When they left, the waiting started, and I realized a man with everything can still be completely powerless in front of one email. The results hit my inbox that evening. I opened it alone in my office, the whole world shrinking to one line on a screen. Probability of paternity 99.99%. My knees almost gave out. I remembered their faces on the sidewalk, and something ugly and holy broke open at the same time. Tiana was in the doorway, watching, eyes red from a day pretending she wasn't terrified. "Well," she managed. "They're mine," I said, voice cracking on the last word, "our kids." She covered her mouth. Tears spilling, years of anger and fear and stubborn love all crashing through. I stepped toward her, stopped myself halfway. "I didn't know," I said. "You didn't want to know," she said quietly. "There's a difference. If it were you, would you forgive me? Would you say, 8 years of absence is erased by one night of doing the right thing? Or would you tell me to choke on my guilt, be honest?" That night, I walked past the room where the triplets slept, watched Micah drooling on the pillow, Malcolm curled in a ball, Mia hugging a teddy bear. Mrs. Lang had dug out of storage the weight of what I'd missed, pressed down so hard I could barely stand upright. The next days were messy. I tried too hard. Honestly, took them to the rooftop garden, overflowed them with toys, offended Tiana by talking about schools and trust funds 30 minutes after the results. She shut that down quick. "They don't need your money to feel whole," she said. "They need consistency. They need you sober emotionally. They need a man who doesn't vanish when things get hard." My mom, Evelyn, came over, saw those kids, almost dropped her purse. "Lord, they look like you took a copy machine to your baby pictures." She laughed through tears, then grabbed my shoulder. "You fix this boy." We started to build something fragile. Breakfasts together, school talk, the kids asking questions. Why do we have our own rooms now? Why is the TV so big? Why doesn't Mommy like your elevator? Tiana still sleeping with her shoes by the bed, just in case she had to run. And then just when I thought maybe God was giving me a clean second chance, the twist hit. Not a cute twist, a war. One morning my phone blew up for a different reason. Emergency alerts, missed calls. Subject lines in all caps. Security breach. Data leak. Crisis. By noon, the story was everywhere. Johnson Dynamics suffers massive cyber attack. Client data exposed, stocks plummet. I was on the phone barking orders. Shut down. The servers get forensics in. Pacing my office. While down the hall, my kids were drawing pictures at the kitchen table. "Malik," my lawyer Jamal said, voice low. "We've traced some of the access keys. Vanessa's account keeps popping up." Vanessa, the ex-fiancée, I humiliated at my front door with an audience. You think she did this on purpose? I asked. I think she's angry and reckless and had access, he said. Also, the board is pressuring you to step down while this gets investigated. Step down, I snapped. That company is my name. Tiana was in the doorway again, like some inconvenient truth God kept sending arms crossed. You used that same tone on me once, she said. Right before you chose your company over our marriage, how'd that work out? You don't understand, this is different, I shot back. Is it? She asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly the same. You're about to sacrifice people for your pride again. That shut me up. Jamal said, if you stay, it looks like you're protecting yourself. If you step aside, it looks like you're protecting the company. I looked from him to Tiana to the hallway where my kids were sitting on the floor, building a tower of blocks that kept falling, then getting rebuilt. And for the first time in my adult life, I chose to let go. At the press conference, lights blazing, reporters circling, I said it straight. We have been attacked, and we will cooperate fully with investigators, effective immediately. I'm stepping aside as CEO, so there is no question about our transparency. My priority is restoring trust first in the people we serve, and also in the man I'm becoming. Some people called it brave, some called it stupid. I walked off that stage feeling like I'd jumped without a parachute when I opened my front door. 3 kids barreled into me like I'd brought the whole sky home. Daddy, you're back early, Mia shouted. Yeah, I said, realizing I liked how that sounded. I'm back. Right here in the middle of the story, let me say this, if you're still watching, stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. The real miracle in my life was not that I got my billions back. It's that I learned what to do when I lost them. With the company out of my hands, for the first time I had to face something I dodged for years myself. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lorraine Harper, middle-aged, calm, looking at me, like my net worth didn't move the needle for her at all. You don't have to impress me, she said our first session. You just have to tell the truth. We went back all the way back to my father walking out when I was 9, to my mom working 3 jobs, to the shame of food stamps, to the vow I made that I would never be poor, never be abandoned, never need anyone. So you built an empire on fear, she said at one point. Fear is excellent fuel, terrible foundation. You know what I mean. While I was unpacking my demons, something else was being born in my house. Tiana was in the guest room with my mom one afternoon and found an old notebook cover, worn pages full of neat handwriting at the top. It said, Women of Grace. Inside were plans, resources, scriptures, ideas for a place that would help single mothers with childcare, housing, job training. I wanted to start this years ago, my mom said. Life and this stubborn heart got in the way. Tiana ran her fingers over the pages. Then let's do it now. She brought it to me, eyes on fire. You talk about legacy, Malik. This is legacy, not another glass tower. We took one underused property I owned and gutted it. Turned luxury, a thing, into a community center, my money. Tiana's vision. My mom's prayers. When the first Women of Grace Center opened, the line wrapped around the block. Mothers with strollers, with toddlers, with tired eyes but straight backs. Tiana stood at a cheap podium and spoke like she'd been born to do it. We are not here to pity you, she said. We are here to stand with you until you can stand on your own. Your story is not over. I watched from the back with my hands in my pockets, and tears I pretended were from the dust. Meanwhile, the investigation nailed Vanessa charges of fraud, data theft, all of it. The prosecutors wanted my testimony. Old me would have sharpened my teeth, enjoyed it. New me walked in, told the truth in plain words, no extra venom. When the guilty verdict hit, I saw Vanessa break, and for a second, I saw the cost of my old life in her face, too. I just want peace, I told Tiana that night, not revenge. That's the first rich man sentence I've believed out of your mouth, she said, half joking, half real. More time passed. My role in business shifted to advisory. The company healed under new leadership. Women of Grace grew, my kids got taller. I stopped needing to be called sir to feel like a man one evening after we'd closed up the center, and put the kids to bed, I stood with Tiana in the kitchen, same woman, same heartbeat, brand new scars. "I love you," I said finally, simple. No pitch, no angle. Not the idea of you from before you, now the woman who survived all the hell I played a part in. "You hurt me worse than anything I'd ever known," she answered. "But you also showed up when you finally saw the damage, so here's the deal, Malik, no more speeches, just consistency." A few months later, in front of our family, with my mom still strong enough to clap louder than anyone, I asked her to marry me again, smaller ring this time, bigger promise. She said yes. Those years after we remarried were not perfect, but they were honest breakfasts with spilled cereal homework at the dining table, board meetings at Women of Grace therapy sessions, where I kept unpacking my ego. My mom's health started slipping, heart weaker, breath shorter. One night after another scare, she sat us all down. "I'm not scared to go," she said. "I've seen what God did with you fools. I'm proud. Just promise me you'll keep opening doors for people nobody claps for." 2 weeks later, she passed in her sleep. At her funeral, same church, same pews, I stood there and said, "My mother taught me not to confuse success with goodness and not to waste the storms that break us open." The choir sang Amazing Grace. I held my kids' hands. Tiana held mine, and I felt grief and gratitude braided together. Women of Grace exploded in the years after, like every seed my mom never got to plant grew all at once. More centers in Atlanta, then in other states, then overseas. We opened one in Ghana, one in Brazil, one in small towns. Nobody puts on postcards. Our kids joined in Mia running youth programs, the boys on operations and outreach. We took all the broken pieces of our story and built something that caught other people before they shattered. People started inviting us to speak, asking how we did it, expecting a brand strategy. I told them the truth they didn't want on a slide. I stopped running, I told the truth, I stayed, my wife forgave me, and we decided money was only holy if it sheltered someone besides us. Years later, I sat in my living room, older, slower, watching another rare snow fall past the windows. Tiana next to me, photos of our grandkids on the wall, Women of Grace banners in cities I'd never visited. We weren't perfect. We still argued about stupid things. I still fought my ego sometimes. But we had built a life where nobody we could reach had to freeze on Peachtree without someone stopping. That night, my granddaughter Amira called me after the annual Women of Grace Gala. "Granddad," she said, breathless, "it's snowing." I just saw a young mom with 2 babies on the corner by the pharmacy. I called the outreach van, stayed with her till they came. "What did she ask you?" I said. "She asked why I stopped." Amira said, her voice shaking a little. "I told her because someone once stopped for us." I couldn't say anything for a second, just watched the snow, felt my throat close. "Good answer," I finally managed. That's when it hit me for real. The full circle of it, my biggest shame had become the open door other families walked through. And also this ugly truth, none of it would exist if this country hadn't let my ex-wife and my children sit in the cold that night to begin with. So here's where I'm going to make some of you uncomfortable. We love redemption stories, right? We love to say, look at this man, he changed. He used his money for good. He turned his life around. And sure, I'm grateful for all of it, but underneath that is a harder question we don't like to touch. Why was it possible for my kids to exist, breathing, shivering, hungry, on the sidewalk of a rich city, while their father stood 10 minutes away under chandeliers, pretending to save the world with a speech, and nobody stopped? Do you think that's fair? Should a woman like Tiana have to choose between asking for help and being called a gold digger? Should kids have to win a DNA lottery to get pulled out of the cold? Should the system wait for a billionaire to feel guilty before it works? I wrestle with that even now. Yes. I changed, yes. I'm trying to spend the rest of my life paying forward what Grace did for me, but I won't lie to you, I still wake up some nights remembering that first moment on Peachtree and thinking, what if I had looked down at my phone instead? What if I had stepped into the car and never seen them? So I'm going to leave it with you. If it were you on that sidewalk with your kids under a thin blanket, would you judge yourself as harshly as people online judge women like Tiana? Or would you just be praying for one warm hand to reach down one person who didn't assume the worst? And if you're more like me in this story, with some level of power comfort, a car that starts when it's cold, a full fridge, are you using that to build taller gates? Or are you willing to get a little uncomfortable and pay attention to who's freezing right in front of you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, argue with me, tell me. If you think Tiana was right to keep the kids from me until I proved I'd changed. Tell me if Vanessa deserved what she got. Tell me if you believe people like me deserve second chances, or if you think some doors should stay closed. I want to hear the truth from you, not the polite version. If this story hit you anywhere deep, don't just swipe away, hit like so it reaches somebody who needs to hear that winter isn't the end of their story. Share it with a friend who's going through something heavy, and tell me where you're watching from, and whether you've ever lived through a moment that forced you to choose between your pride and doing what's right. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just my confession. It's a question I'm throwing back to you when winter finds someone on your street. Are you going to look away, or are you going to be the one who stops?